Okay, so
Heidi?
obviously we're here to talk about benefits and challenges of investing in syndications. And I have a list of questions I would love to ask, but let me hear from you guys. What do you want to know? What do you want to get out of these next 30 minutes together?
I'm looking for answers to questions I don't know to ask.
Yeah. I think how successful, like right out of the gate, like some of the first indications that people have done, like what has the return been? What were the pitfalls and the successes?
Yeah, me too. Great. So let's start with Zane, because I know you've just done a good one, a big one. Zane, can you introduce yourself and talk about your experience?
Hey guys, my name is Zane Metters. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm a co-owner of a team, the Kirby Zane team. I got into real estate to build the business, and then to fund my real estate investment kind of addiction that I have. So a couple of years ago, it's funny. There's a Bold thing behind me. I was at Bold and a guy called me and said, "Hey, I've got 57 units and I can meet with you in an hour." So I left Bold and I went and met with this guy and I ended up putting a group together and we bought 33 units. We closed December of 19. Now these were there's a couple of different kind of properties, and this was the landlord that was I'd rather have 100% occupancy and no vacancies, but I'm also not going to do anything to the property, the deferred maintenance kind of guy. Kept everything on a ledger and faxed. He didn't, I mean, I had to it was difficult closing. So we ended up buying 33 units. The average rents we bought them were $365 a month per unit. We bought them around $33,000 per unit. We have put into each one of them. So we raised money. I made a couple of phone calls, raised $350,000, purchased them. My two partners do this. That's what they do for a living, is buy properties and turn them around, fix them up, and then refinance them. And so we did that. And then a year and a half later, we redid a refi. We renovated almost every property. Instantly, we raised rents $100 out of the gate, $200 out of the gate, had some vacancies, started flipping those first. And so what we did over a period of time is we refinanced. Our investors got 85% of their investment back in 18 months. And now they just get cash flow. So our projection was to have a return in 5 years between cash flows and a refinance of, I think our projection was a 17% return. I think we're tracking at a 24% return. And just because we bought at a right price, and then all of a sudden, all the rents are going up, and what we're seeing today in most markets. So then I found another one, 16 units. I have a program where I market to investor or people who need to sell. So I've got an iBuyer program. And by talking about that in my market center, a guy comes up, one of my best friends, and says, "Hey, I got this guy. You might could buy his house on an iBuyer program, and he's got 20 units. You might could buy that." So I said, "Oh, let's go meet this guy." So I put the 20 units under contract. 16 are one tax map. The other were two duplexes. I personally bought the two duplexes. I syndicated the 16 unit apartments. And this we just closed, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. And the rents were at 500. He said he raised the rents to 600. He had same kind of landlord. He had inherited it. So he'd been managing it for a while. They were in better shape, much better shape. I bought these for 65 a unit per door. And I could probably turn around and sell them for $80, 80,000 a unit today, right? And make a quick flip if I wanted to. Current rents, he said, we're at 600. Most people are still paying 500. It's just, this guy was a liar. He's a nasty dude. So I came in, we met last week with the property manager and we said, so what do we need to expect? Are half of the 16 going to go away when we raise the rents and do that? Because we had to wait a period of a month to see who's going to pay and who's not going to pay, so we can evict some of those. She's expecting 8 of 16 are going to not renew. And so we'll have 8 units. And I said, so if we renovated 4 of them, I mean, how much could we put the other 4 on the market for? I said, in the condition that we're in now. And she said, oh, we could get $850 a month easy in the condition they're in now. My 3rd year target number was $850 a month after renovations. So I feel really good about this one. So we had promised a lower return on this one because they were in better shape. I think we had a 15% promise of a return, cash on cash, or double your money in 5 years through cash flows and refinance. So that's kind of the quick story of what I've got. The two duplexes, I'm running those on my own. Same property managers managing them, but they're pretty easy. So I've got 45 a unit in those two. So $90,000 per duplex, and I could turn around and sell those for 200 in my market once I fix them up and rent them. And I was talking to my banker yesterday. I'm going to put leverage on one and a HELOC on the other. Then I have a full line of credit that's backed by real estate that I can use to do my flips and stuff like that. So that's a quick summary. But my partners, if I bring another deal, they like big deals now. They've got 2,000 units. When we first did our first deal, I was like, they had 50 units. Now they have 2,000. And so if I find 500 units in the upstate of South Carolina, I've got a buyer full, and I could be a partner in that deal. So just setting up relationships. I think there was a question earlier when Heidi and I were first talking about who do you know who to partner with and that kind of thing. I can speak to that real quick if you want me to, Heidi.
Yeah, please.
When you're doing this, so in my first partnership, I had the money guy who was a former financial planner, and I had the contractor guy who was a home flipper and got his GC license. And so those were the 2 partnerships, and that's a great partnership to have in this business. And they've been studying the business. They'd taken their lumps, and they had taken some really, really challenging properties, and just by grit and will, their first couple, they made them into successes. So they've had their lumps and they've had their challenges, but they've always had a good run of success. They're very, very underwritten heavy. So if you're considering someone saying, hey, invest with me, look at the returns, and I'm happy if you send me a package to give you my quick thoughts on it. But the thing that I can't tell is who's the partnership that you're partnering with, because your investment is going to be as good as the team that's doing it. So if they went to a webinar last week and they're doing it this week, I might not. But if they've got a track record or are partners with people who have done a track record of my first deal, I had a track record and I partnered with them. The second deal, they consulted. So they're still involved in it as a consultant, but it's my deal, but I still got them as my quarterback coach in the background. How do we do this? What do we do? And what's going on with that? So just make sure that the team that is doing it has experience and has a track record. And then the second thing I would look at is fees, typical fees they might charge. There might be real estate fees involved. And there's also an acquisition fee. Typically it's 3%. So anything above that would be, depends on the deal, depends on how much return you've got, depends on a lot of things, but might be a little bit on the higher side. So.
Thanks, Zane. Does anyone have questions for Zane before we go to our next person? Great. Gabby.
Ma'am.
I love what you're doing. Just tell the group what you're putting together.
Sure. Hi, I'm Gabby. I'm one of the executive coaches, and my husband and I decided a couple of years ago, just to keep the story real concise, to get into commercial real estate. So what we actually own is an RV park, and we have positioned ourselves to really deep dive into RV and mobile home parks. We have learned as we were traveling as full-time RVers that, one night my husband was literally sitting around the campfire, looking around, counting the spots. And he said, I just wonder how much money and cash flow these stalls really produce. So we started to, talk to a bunch of the owners that happened to live on site or that would pop into the RV resorts at which we were staying. And that really, ignited us to take a look at this. And what we really love about this asset class is the cash flow, right? So we, one of our criteria for acquisitions is cash flow, because as you may imagine, for those of you who are investing, there isn't much to be depreciated. So when we go to cost segregate, because we have pretty much land in a clubhouse, it isn't as much that, but what we have found is that the cash flow in this asset class is fantastic. Last year, I think we came at a 68% cash on cash return on our own park. And thank you. We were, our CPA was very excited for us and terrified because as we were forecasting, he wasn't expecting that we were going to beat the EBITDA that much. So this year, so of course, the clients under my care have witnessed this journey all along and started to, wonder what would it look like if we could participate in that asset class without really being owners or, general partners, so to speak. So it just got me thinking last winter, and I was sharing this with Heidi on one of our executive mastermind calls with the coaches. And I said, I just want every single one of my clients to become a GP. So what we're preparing right now is actually going to be launched in my roster next week. We're about to go under contract on an RV park in Florida, which will be our first syndication as a tribe. So I'm actually going to bring in clients as limited partners and have assembled a GP group that is bringing in the money and the experience. And I would say, to add on what Zane, what you were saying earlier, I think it's super important that you think of your GP group really as a mega team. And if you think about the different responsibilities that the GPs may have, it'll be, experience in the field, experience in syndication, experience between the difference of whether or not you're going to want to run this as a friends and family deal, which is what we're doing next, right, with our roster, because we have those existing relationships, or if you're going to partner with somebody who's taken this as a public offering, which means you want to probably understand much more about the track record of success. But for our purposes, Heidi, for now, is we're running this as a friends and family syndication with the outcome that if my clients so choose, that they would be positioned to ultimately become GPs over time themselves.
And for those who are just dipping their toe into these waters, what does GP stand for?
Yeah, so this is the general partnership group. Think about those as the individuals that are going to handle the stocks, right, of shares that you're ultimately buying into when you're buying into the opportunity of co-owning a business passively as limited partners. And the GPs are really the ones that are going to incur the risk and the responsibility to make sure that the returns that they're sharing with you that they intend on getting, they're actually getting.
That leads me to another one of my questions. There are some people on the screen here who have very successful real estate teams. Does anyone include your team members or employees as investors, as partners in any of your rental properties, as a way to either incentivize people to join the team or stay on the team?
It's something that I've batted around, is how to create a fund. So my business is Kirby Zane. We were going to, in my mind, call it a 401kz. I don't know why, but the idea is that the agents can invest in it, and they invest over time. It keeps them into the deals. There's returns. They get to participate in it. I do have one agent who is doing her own flipping on my team, and so I want to support that. And I certainly do a lot of investment work and support with that. But I don't have a fund yet. Something on my mind.
Great. Vishal, you just participated in a syndication. I know you weren't the one that put it together, but tell us what your experience was like. How did you choose your syndications? Oh, we don't have a very good connection for you, though.
Actually, Heidi,
just to go back to your previous point, you guys can hear me, correct?
I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Sorry, Gabby, what did you say?
I was going to say Clarissa can speak to that as well, because she's a very experienced limited partner.
Oh, wonderful. Go ahead, Clarissa, tell us how you chose yours.
Well, I got lucky. So my cousin owns a capital company, and then I have a really good client of mine who got into multifamily as well. So they kind of fell in my lap from my sphere. I'm in 7, invested in over 9. It's 916 units, and one of them is it helped because I knew and trusted people that were on the GP team, had a track record of other properties as well. And my biggest thing too, when I look at, I know it sounds real silly. I actually look the first thing when I get a package, because I get lots of emails and there's deals that I don't invest in because it just doesn't make sense for my goals. I look up where the nearest Starbucks and Chick-fil-A is because they do a lot of legwork for you. They do a lot of market research. So if there's a Starbucks around, I'm usually down to give you some money. So, but it's been a good experience as a limited partner because I also do single families. I also invest in personal notes and do some like life insurance arbitrage. And so I do everything for a very specific reason. And one of the reasons I do limited partners on the syndications is like a long-term savings account for me, because I need to park some cash. So and I don't answer the phone when the toilet.
Yes.
My other one, I just don't have to do that now. So.
Oh, great. Okay. Vishal, want to try again?
Yep.
Great.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. So just going back to your previous point, Heidi, where you're asking about bringing on your team members into these investments, one of the things to be cautious of is whatever security exemption that you're filing under, you may not be able to offer it to them because it could be limited only to accredited investors. But yeah, going back to what we were talking about, I did just close on I was a junior partner on the GP side for 120 units or so in Columbia, South Carolina. And basically what I've been doing is I started by investing on my own in the multifamily space to see if I could understand it. I did get education, E to P, so I went and got a coach and training and all that kind of stuff to learn the syndication business, because I saw it as a sister company to what I'm already doing, because I had a built-in database with my clients and friends that already knew me from the real estate sales world. So I did my own first investment, learned some good lessons. That was 44 units in Athens, Georgia. And then the second one that I was a participant in, I was on the GP side. That was like 120 some units out in Greensboro, North Carolina. We're actually in the process of selling that now after about a 2.5-year hold period. It was originally supposed to be a 5-year hold period. And then the one that I closed most recently was in Columbia, South Carolina. But it's really been a lot of learning and growing throughout this process.
Thank you. So, and Katie had a question. For those of you who have put syndications together, did you participate in other people's syndications that they put together as a way to learn how to do it first?
Hey, I'll jump in here. So I'm Chase Craig out of Boise, Idaho. Let's see, we closed 2 syndications last year, right? In November, they closed in December. We had 279 units in McAllen, Texas, and then we had 176 units in San Antonio. And currently we have 104 units that we're actually the key principal on in, let's see, San Marcos, Texas. So which right between Austin and San Antonio. And so I guess I did want to jump in here, and I don't know if everyone's just like a syndication expert, because I feel like we've jumped some steps here on how the investing side works. I was fortunate enough to speak with, some of you might know him, his name's Scott Bishop. Lacey Bishop runs one of the top teams in Keller Williams out of Boise, Idaho here. And Scott's been a mentor to me, and he's invested as a limited partner in over 30 of these. He's never been a GP. He wants to, but he doesn't really have time because they're business. And he really helped me understand what you're looking for, and solidified to me that the general partnership team, which is what Zane and Gabby had mentioned, the GP team is critical. And track record is, I think, a part of it. You're not always going to get a team that's done 50 deals or something like that, because they might not have the best deal. A lot of those people aren't even doing deals right now because they're nervous about the market. So track record's one thing, but one of the pieces that I learned was the the ease at which a GP can make a deal look better than it actually is really scary.
Mm.
And when I was a limited partner just investing in them, I didn't realize there was all these levers until we started to do our own deals. I was like, oh. And so I'd like to just give you guys a couple examples of those levers that they can pull. You know, one of them is expected rent growth. And, you know, typically 4% is year one. If it's hot, maybe 3% going on beyond that. But some of these guys will, if they had expected rent growth last year was 15% in San Marcos, for example. If we kept that going, our return would look like, I don't know, like a 70% average annual return. Like it'd be ridiculous. And so that's just one lever. Another lever would be taxes. Typically when the home is purchased, or excuse me, the multifamily property is purchased, taxes are going to go up, you know. And then another lever you guys might not be aware of, and I think you should, and it's probably one of the bigger risks in syndications today, is a lot of these are bridge loans. And so they're adjustable rates. Well, what's going to happen to rates in the next year or two?
Going up.
Yeah. So did they underwrite the rate that they could get today, which is 3.625, or did they underwrite a higher rate, anticipating a higher rate over the life of the project? And there's 7 or 8 critical levers that can be pulled. And how would you know to look for that? Well, you're going to see you'll get basically like a marketing plan. It's kind of like a pretty prospectus from most of these syndications. And what you want to do is you want to ask that operator if you can actually see their underwriting model, because their underwriting model will have a lot of the expectations that they are making, the guesses, right? The forecasts. We forecast X. You know, if they're forecasting the rent growth to go up X amount, like you might not see year over year over year that's leading to that average annual return that you're investing in. So yeah, and I think a couple other things, you know, Zane mentioned fees, which I think is really important. You know, the acquisition fee is a big one. I've seen exit fees. You know, it really depends on the operators and how they're working, but I think 2% is on an acquisition fee is typical, 3% sometimes. And I think you do get into some higher fees if there's some real weird stuff. Like I just invested in my IRA into another operator who I really like. And they closed on 7 units in 4 cities. It was 7 buildings, 4 cities, 800 units. So the acquisition fee on that one, I was happy to pay them a little bit more money because it was a nightmare, right? For them to coordinate all those closings in different states at different times. So another thing, just like a layman's term, it's not layman, but it's like something you can expect is something called a preferred return. And this is the number one reason as a limited partner, I liked investing in syndications, is because of the preferred return. So our model, and the company I'm with is Smart Wealth Equity. That's our syndication company. I have an amazing partner who is just incredible. But our model that we picked up is the one that I'd like to invest in, which is a 70-30 split with a 7% pref. And so let me explain what that means in case you're not aware. What it means is the 7% preferred return, you've got limited partners. These are passive investors, strictly money put into the deal. They're not putting any sweat equity or skills or anything like that. They literally just write a check and then expect returns. That's limited partner. Then you have the general partner. These are the guys and gals that are running the deal, the day-to-day business. They're actively involved in it, making sure the business plan takes place. So the 7% preferred return, what's cool about that is that the limited partner, the money, gets paid 7% annually before the GPT makes any money at all. Then any money over 7% is split 70-30, 70% to the limited partners who invested, 30% to the general partners. So that's one of my favorite things as an investor. And I wrote checks. I mean, I think I put about 300 grand into these last years as a limited partner. And I love it because if they're winning, I'm winning even more. Right. And if I'm winning less, they're not winning at all. So it's a really neat way to do business. Now, they're not all ran that way. They can be ran. It's just like negotiating on a home sale, right? It can be, anything's negotiable. I've got a guy in Texas doing land deals right now, and he's just paying a 10% preferred return with a 1% exit, and there's no upside. And he's basically just taking their money, taking land, splitting it up, selling the land, and then paying them back. So there's all sorts of methods to that madness, but yeah. Anyways, I went pretty far there. So
That was absolutely great, and it brings up another really great question, which is, it seems like there's a lot of different ways throughout the process that people who are involved either pay money or get paid money. You mentioned exit fees. You mentioned the 70-30 split, the 7% preferred return. Can someone here just kind of jump into some of these fees and ways that you either get paid as the person puts it together, or the fees you might pay if you're joining as a limited partner?
yeah, I'll just go real quick, and then maybe Zane or someone else can jump on the back end here. So in terms of fees you can expect, typical fees, you've got closing costs. There's ways for them to bake extra fees into closing costs. So watch out for that. That should be somewhere between 4 and 6% is what the closing cost should be. And so just keep an eye on that. The other piece that I would want you to keep an eye on is the acquisition fee, as Zane mentioned. There's also potentially exit fees. And then there's asset management fees is typical, and that's different than property management. There's just an asset management fee. Typically, it's around 2% of the gross rent. So, but there's, I've seen other fees. If you're seeing fees outside of that, I mean, you could just call me or text me, and I'd be happy to look at it. And so, go ahead.
The only other fee I would add to that is a refinance fee of 1%, because the person who's leading that charge, I mean, that's a lot of work. It's
totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. But you see sometimes 4% acquisition fees and real estate fees. The two deals that I did, I found the deal. I found it through my real estate company. So I put 3% real estate fees on it. I would say this, so if you're on the GP side, your deal is going to tell you what it's going to allow. Right. So both of my deals were really rich deals. And so I had 3% real estate fee on there, of which I split with the guy who brought it to me, a referral fee to him, and then a 3% acquisition fee. Both of these were very difficult properties to get under contract because of the type of landlord and all the stuff that we did. I probably made 30 cents an hour on return on my part of the acquisition fee. Part of my acquisition fee went to pay my consultants. So that's just, but that deal allowed it on the GP split on these two deals, because it was so rich return. I can give them a 15% return on average, a projected return on average. My limited partners got 50%, and my GP team got 50%, because the deal allowed that to happen. Now, if I'm buying market rate stuff, it's going to be more. I've seen 80-20, I've seen 70-30 with a preferred return on that, and they all work, right? But what I like about investing in the side, and I've not done this, but I like the investing side, and what Chase was alluding to, is it aligns both sides together, right? Me as a GP isn't winning until the LP has already won, and that's what I would want to hear if I was investing in one.
Thank you all so much for being here today. This 30 minutes flew by. This was a wonderful discussion. Really appreciate you all. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sharing.